Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with y'all. Uh, I am Daniel Petro. I'm a developer advocate at Xano, and with me today is
Matthew Sandys. Hello, everyone. I'm the education lead at WeWeb. It's a pleasure to always do this, especially with yourself, Daniel. I really look forward to these and what we're working on today. It's super exciting. I always get excited when we go through this in the testing, so it should be good.
awesome. Let's dive right in. We're going to quickly just, introduce the topic today, what we're going to be going over, and then we're going to hop right in. We're going to try and make the most of our time today. So let's do it.
Sweet.
All right, so we've been working on this agentic CRM. If you joined us for our last webinar, we built out a simple kind of chatbot, and it was, providing a lot of value. Everyone's talking about how to integrate AI into their workflows, into their applications. And today we're going to show you how to take it one step further than what we did last time. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. We are already introduced ourselves, but there you go. There's a different picture of us. So what we built before, like I was saying, it was a single tool chatbot that utilized our MCP servers in Xano to connect and execute tools. But it had a limitation of just being able to do one single tool call the way we had built it out. And today we're going to be upgrading it to a CRM copilot with a multi-agent system that also has multi-tool chaining. And we are so excited to show you that. So what we're going to cover today is our Xano agents, and we're going to go over the architecture overview of these agents. And we're going to show you what tools we added to the agents to kind of supercharge that CRM experience and help you get more done. And on the WeWeb side, we're going to really show you some awesome user experience things that you can do by showing you the agent tool visibility like we had discussed in part one, and smart navigation, some other cool features. So I'm going to pass it back to Matthew right now. He's going to give you a quick demo of what we're going to walk through and build out.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, I shall share my screen. So what we'll be building today is basically a chat UI that can go alongside the agent. We built this chat UI in the previous stream we did, so we won't go through how to set up the base principles of the chat UI. We'll just build on top of it, which is where this came from. It came from the previous stream. And what we'll showcase is one, returning the message from the agent like we did in part one of the stream. But really the cool things around this that we can do with the agents is the agent has access to tools. So we'll want to see what tools the agent used to generate its response. So we'll showcase some of that in the UI. And then also artifacts. And these are very cool because now our agent has access to perform actions inside of Xano. It can do things like creating records and updating records. And so in this example, I asked it, who's the developer advocate for Xano? I had no idea who it was, you'll never believe. And it found Daniel, and it created him in the database, highlighted it on our front end, and we can click onto the artifact in the chat, and we can see some more enriched information about whoever it is it found. So that's what we're working through from scratch, basically. We'll start where we left off in the WeWeb project from the previous stream, and we'll build everything.
Awesome.
But first, take it away, Daniel. I know you have some goodies to show us on the Xano side first.
For sure. I'm not going to be able to build it out fully on stream, but I'm going to walk y'all through it and show you how we got from where we left off last time to where we are today. So if you wouldn't mind showing my screen now, Matthew, thank you so much. Yeah, let's go full screen. I love that. All right. So basically, this was our chatbot API from last time. And as I mentioned, it was just making one tool call request at a time. And so let me quickly go over to our new chat endpoint. So as you can see in the last one, it was just a API request. But now with our new Xano agents feature, you are basically able to call the AI agent directly in a function stack. So let's hop right into this CRM Copilot before we go over the rest of the chatbot. So if you go into AI, and under AI, you have agents now, and tools and MCP servers. So here we are inside the CRM Copilot agent, and we have our prompts right here, our system prompt where we're telling it exactly what it should be doing and how it should be doing it. And if we go into editing our agent, you can configure it. So we've chosen OpenAI for this agent, and we are telling it max iterations are going to be 10. So what these steps are is going to be tool calls and multiple LLM requests that are automatically chained for you. And that's the beauty of transitioning from what we had built last time to the new Xano Agents feature. And then you can see how I've developed my prompt here. It's fairly simple. And then I'm using these XML style tags or YAML tags. So we'll go over that in detail here in a second. And then I'm passing in my user prompt. Ignore this conversation history. We don't need that. And then we are passing in our API key, and then we're using O4 Mini for this model. And then there's a bunch of other configurations here. You can basically select more models than are available right here. So you can select all different types of models as long as they follow the OpenAI format. So I'm going to go ahead and just save that since I removed the conversation history. And let's go over the tools. So I have 3 tools here. We can go ahead and connect other tools. As you can see, I have a number of them. If I hop over to my tools, you can see all the different tools I've created and where they're referenced. So all of these are referenced by agents. So, but they could also be referenced by MCP servers. So you can use them wherever you want. And if I hop back into the CRM Copilot, as you can see, we have our get deals, which is similar to the tool we built out last time and showcased. And then we added this search contact tool as well. That's just querying and checking if we have that person in our CRM already. So the agent can know whether they should update or add them. And then if I actually go back to our last tool, we have our lead enrichment agent. So we're calling our lead enrichment agent as a tool from the CRM Copilot. And this is just one way you can do agent orchestration. And so what this lead enrichment agent does is it basically goes out and finds the user that you're asking about, or the person that you're asking about, or a certain person at a company with a certain type of role. And the way it's able to do that is by equipping it with these tools. So we have an Exa Search tool. If you haven't heard of Exa, you should definitely go check them out. They have a great API that will essentially is scraping the web using AI. And I keep hitting back instead of this back. Excuse me. And then we have our email finder tool. And this one is going to be an email finder from hunter.io. And that way it ensures that it's grabbing a valid email and not hallucinating and making one up for you or just guessing. And so if we go back again, we have the add contact tool, which is going to add a record in our table. And then we have this enrich contact tool. So the lead enrichment agent basically adds the contact and then goes and finds all this information about them and then enriches the contact. But not only that, if we dive into our system prompt here, I have created this, or actually, me and AI created this system prompt together. And it basically goes through and tells it, how to use the tools, when to use them, and the purpose behind using these tools. And this is just really guiding the agent to complete the task at hand. And this is what we call fuzzy logic. So we don't necessarily have to build out these workflows deterministically. We can rely on the agent to find their way to the goal. So we're going to be sharing all this information with y'all. So we don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want to hop in and explain what the enrich contact does. So we have a list of inputs here. So once the lead enrichment agent has gone and executed a bunch of tools, done a bunch of searching on the web, and pulled all this information, we want it to enrich the contact. But not only enrich the contact, it's going to also create a deal and leave us a bunch of notes about why it's relevant to us and how we can capitalize on that, essentially. So what we got first is adding the company information. So we go ahead and add that company name, the domain. We're even grabbing that company logo URL, the location, the industry, the number of employees, and then we're assigning it to user ID 2, and that's in our internal system. And then we are going to edit the contact that was created in the other tool, and we're going to update their job title and their company ID now that we've created that company ID in step 1. And in step 3, we're going to go ahead and add a deal. And we are just inputting all of the information that we have in our table that we requested the AI agent to go and get for us from the web. And lastly, we have a list of notes. And what we're doing here is we're looping over these lists of notes and we're just adding them to our note table. And so if we actually go into this notes input right here, we can see notes, or we have a description. And adding these descriptions are really important to kind of guide the AI further. So it knows what this input is exactly. So I've written here notes or insights about the person, company, or deal for the team using the CRM. So hopefully that makes sense. And now if I go back to my CRM Copilot, now you can understand why we have this lead enrichment agent as a tool. So depending on the task, or depending on the prompt to the Copilot, we're trying to figure out basically, or the CRM Copilot will decide, okay, is the user's query asking about deals within our CRM? I'm just going to go ahead and use this get deals tool. Maybe they're asking me to add somebody at a certain company. I should probably call the lead enrichment agent. And so it's really awesome because if we go inside this lead enrichment agent tools, the only input we have are agent instructions. And so what this agent, the CRM Copilot agent, is basically going to automatically instruct the lead enrichment agent without any of our input, just based off of the request to the Copilot. So let me hop over to our chat endpoint and we can dive into how this endpoint works. And so this is what's powering our CRM Copilot on the WeWeb side. And so we're going to basically pass in a prompt and call this AI agent, and then we're adding in the prompt like so. And then, like I said before, I was using those XML tags, and this is just a simple action right here from one of our community members. And you can just put in the tag and it will output that JSON. And this is really awesome. I wouldn't call it a workaround, but it's an alternate way of getting structured outputs from the AI without having to use that dedicated structured outputs. And it's highly efficient. And then I've got a Lambda here that I just used our Lambda assistant for, so it could extract some of the information dynamically from the agent response and structure it in a way that makes it super easy for Matthew to build it out on the front end. And that's what I'm doing with this metadata object. So I'm passing in the deals that we've extracted from the agent response. And then I am also extracting all those tool calls using the Lambda and setting it for Matthew to use on the front end. And then my last step in this endpoint is just logging what we're doing. So I think I have covered everything. Is that about it?
I think so.
Matthew?
Yeah, no,
I
think it's super cool. I loved your term fuzzy logic. Just to give context for everyone who's potentially even a Xano user, but they haven't touched the AI stuff yet. Am I right in thinking you could basically take any endpoint you have, turn it into a tool, give that to an agent, and then similar to what we're doing here, if there's any external services like Hunter.io or anything that has an API, they can basically take their existing endpoints, combine it with custom external services, and give it to an agent, and they have this basically golden hot pot, if that's the best term for it.
Yeah, I love that you called that out. Thank you, Matthew. And like Matthew said, you can basically do anything you want inside these tools. As I showcased before, the Enrich contact tool is pretty much a workflow that's being called. And there's certain scenarios where you don't want the agent trying to figure out all of this logic on its own. Maybe it's easier to just do it behind the scenes and reduce the number of tools that you're equipping your agent with. And that will yield much better results. And then lastly, it doesn't have to be an API request to a third-party service. It could be a request to anything. It could be a database that you have outside of Xano, right? A legacy system or anything like that. So hopefully this was helpful and gave you a clear understanding of the two agents. And think of this lead enrichment as a sub-agent because for the CRM Copilot specifically, we have added it as a tool, but this lead enrichment agent, you could actually, if we go into our database and let's say you have a different workflow or a different API, you could essentially connect it on the front end with WeWeb, and instead of doing it through natural language using the Copilot, you could just trigger that agent to go off and search and scrape the web and fill out all that information basically with a button click or wherever you want to bind it that makes sense in your CRM application.
Very cool. I think there's so many use cases. And yeah, I'm excited to see what people do with this because, as I say, there is just so many different ways people can incorporate it into their existing applications that, be interesting to see what comes even over the next couple of years. I think it will take quite a while just to see it'll take quite a while to see all of the possibilities because there is so many possibilities that this can be incorporated with. And obviously, I'm sure you guys are adding to it constantly. So it's very exciting.
Exactly. And we do have a bunch of content, like as you saw on the last screen, on AI agents. So if you're interested in building it out, I highly recommend watching those videos as well.
Very cool.
I'm going to hand it back to you, Matthew, so we can hop into the front end.
Thank you very much. Yes, so thank you, Daniel. For context, if this is the first time someone's seeing WeWeb before, basically what WeWeb is it's a front-end builder, and how you build your front end relates to putting elements on the page. And if you're completely non-technical, you can think of elements as building blocks. So we built this front end in the stream last time in part 1. If you're curious about basically the core elements of WeWeb and how you can construct something from scratch, I'd recommend checking that out, because I will brush over some things so we can get to everything in this part. But as you can see, if I move my cursor around, everything on this page is basically a building block. And so what we're going to want to do to recreate what we saw in the demo is we're going to want to place these elements / building blocks into the chat section and set up all of the logic. And we'll incorporate our WeWeb AI as much as possible to cover the core foundations. Anywhere where it goes wrong, the nice part about this is that I can step in manually and I can pick up the pieces. So in this case, since we have this foundation that we built from last time, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is actually pull the data from Daniel's endpoint. Now, we already have this set up because we set this up in part 1. And how this chat interface works is that on this button, I trigger a workflow, and it's a global workflow, which in WeWeb basically means you can trigger it from anywhere. And we call the agent. So this is the chat endpoint that Daniel showed. And so what I want to do is I'm going to make a request to this endpoint. So I'm going to call the agent. And the reason I'm going to do that first is because I want to get the data back, because I can then give that to our AI and it can create the UI around the data expected. So to test this, what I can do is I have our parameter, user query, and I will give it the same one I did before, just so we can get all of the expected data needed. So I am saying add the developer advocate at Xano, whose name I forgot. And so I can test this in full. It will call the agent. So it's calling that endpoint and it's passing our query because the parameter is being passed into this action. And it will give us back this data. And once we have that data back, I'll close the workflow editor just so you can see the UI, because the UI is going to be broken. And the reason it's going to be broken is because we've changed the data structure since part 1, so it's expected to be broken. So we have that response back. If I close this, I can see, so it's not completely broken because it's showing the text, but we now want to add the additional steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the workflow and I want to see what we're saving here. So we're saving just the content right now. So we're getting the text content, but in order to show the steps and the artifact, we want the full thing. So what I can do is I can open up this tab. And if I go through this, where we call the agent, I can see the response. So here we get all this data back, and there's a lot of data. However, there's some core parts that we use in the interface. So not everything is relevant for our use case. So the core parts are the tools. So here we can see the tools that we used. So we have the tool name, and then we have more tools, so the email finder. So these are all the tools that we used, so we can use this in the interface. The data, this is the deal that was created. So this is what we use for the artifact. And then in the agent response, sorry, Daniel,
Sorry, I probably should have run the chat endpoint, but if you wouldn't mind opening that back up, I just wanted to call out.
Shall I switch it back to
you? Sure,
okay.
You can. But basically, what we've done is we're showing that, like I said in the chat endpoint, that we have basically put together the response. We've separated our agent response, which is coming from our CRM Copilot, and we've created this metadata object. And that way, at the bottom here, you can see in our response, we have our agent response coming directly from CRM Chatbot 1, and then metadata as metadata. And so if I go ahead and run this, and I'm using an outdated token, I'm going to go ahead and run it one more time. And while we wait for it, I will basically go through and tell you that like I said before, we're extracting those tags and then pulling out all the information with the Lambda. And this was just, it's information that's already in the agent response, but we're doing some data manipulation and some transformation to really make it easier to work with on the front end. And so as soon as this API call completes, we'll be able to step through that response and show you exactly what we mean.
Sweet. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and apologies for skipping
No
over
worries.
that.
We'll see it again now. So if I switch back into WeWeb and go into the workflow, if I open the data, so this is exactly what Daniel just showed. We're getting that response back with the agent response and the metadata. And there's only a few fields in here that we use for our use case. So the data to populate the artifact, the tools to show the tools that we used. And then inside the agent response, we have this plain text explanation, which is actually what we're saving right now. But we want more than this, so we can actually use it in the interface. So I'm going to delete what we had before, and I'm going to pass in just the entire data. So it will look something like this in the response. So we can use this in our editor. I'm going to go into the debug menu and go to variables here. And so in real time, I can change the value of this chat messages variable. And I want to reset it basically. So I'm just going to put it to that. So it's an empty array. And since this still has the response from the last time, what I'll do is we have this. And so I will simply run this again. And so now, when this runs in full, we should see the full content be saved in chat messages. It will be slightly unreadable in the debug panel, but that's expected because we just need it inside of the variable so that we can actually give it to the AI and it can do its thing and pull out what it needs to.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the reason these requests are taking about, I would say anywhere from, 20 seconds to a minute is because of the multi-agent calls and the multi-LLM calls and tool executions that are happening. Like we showed before, it's using Hunter.io, it's using Exa, it's using the add contact tool and a bunch of other things. So it will take a little bit of time to execute that.
And so we've got the response now. And so jumping back into the interface, what I'm going to do is I have these two chat messages. I'm going to delete this one. And so we have this empty response, and this is broken right now because it's just the text. And as we've changed it, we're now saving all of this data. So our current setup doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this message bubble. I'm going to unbind all this data, and I basically want to reset everything. So we have a blank slate. And I'm going to get AI to make the changes. So now that we have the expected data inside of our variable, I'm going to pass it in as context. And I'm going to prompt it to first create the chat interface. But within that, I'm going to describe exactly which part of the interface needs to come from where in the data. So I have a pre-cooked one here, pre-cooked prompt that is, and I'll explain exactly what I'm doing. So this div is called chat messages 2. So I'm saying inside chat messages 2, I want to show the chat messages data. That's this variable that I'm passing in. And here I'm just explaining exactly what should be in the interface. So text content, show the tools used, and show the artifacts. And here I'm describing where in the data each field should come from. So the text content should come from the result field of the agent response. We saw this in the workflow when we expanded to see what data was being returned by the agent. The tools used should come from the tools field. I won't read all of this, but basically I'm just describing exactly which part of the data it should use to create the tools. And then the data array, so the artifacts, it should be pulled from here. And so I can send this off. And so it should now create the chat interface. And because we've passed in all of the context, so we've given it chat messages 2, the div that we want it to create the interface inside of. The chat messages variable, and then also inside of the prompt, we've described where in the data it should pull it from. It should build everything as needed. And if it doesn't, if it misses off a few things, we can go in and pick up the pieces.
That is one of the things that I love about WeWeb is that you can go quick with the AI, but then you also have that control similarly in Xano.
Exactly, yes. It's, I suppose really gives you peace of mind where even if something doesn't go perfectly and it's looking good so far as it's generating, but even if something didn't go perfectly, as you say, you can step in. So it's always good peace of mind. So the tools used are empty. I think we might need to edit that. But the artifact, it seems to have pulled out, which is fantastic. So we'll just need to check out why the tools used is empty. So now this is done, I'm just going to click into this because I know for a fact there was tools used here. And so if I open up the content and go to the metadata, I have the tools here. And I'm just going to expand this and see why it's returning something basically that's empty. So I'm just going to get rid of this to make sure that it's used the correct path for this. So I'll pass in the tools. And I think, okay, so that's wherever it, I might need to prompt this one again, actually. Because this is quite a tricky one. This is so tricky that on the fly, I couldn't even do it, to be honest with you. So it's quicker if we try and get AI to do this. So I'll give it one more go, and fingers crossed, we can pull this one off. So I'll delete this. Actually, I'll unbind this, and I'll turn repeat items off. And in here, I will take this. I'm going to start a new chat, and I'm passing in the tools list. And I will say, in the tools list, I want to show the tools used. I think it can be that simple. Tools used come from the tools field, and it's just using the exact same data. And what I'll do actually is I will also pass in the item data so it has context of what is there.
I love that.
Yes.
It's so helpful to be able to just select that context of either the data or the component or whatever it is.
And so
when we had initially built out the demo before, I don't know if we'll have time for it today, but we were also able to get the actual CRM application outside of the chat interface to basically navigate us to the deals page if we weren't on it and do all kinds of cool things.
So I don't think it's working for this one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set this one up on the fly. Because we have an object here, what I think I can do is I'll go into the formulas. I want to get all the keys of the object. So I will pass, it was the tools in. So we have these. And inside of the tool item, which will be repeating here. So we have the tool name, and we have all of the data here, which is good. And then we have the further repeated items here. So what I'll do is I will unbind this. I'm going to bind this to be the data. That's repeating because I have repeat items on here, but I'll turn this off. And I think actually I'll group this again. Apologies that I'm doing this on the fly.
No, I think this is super helpful to everyone, especially like, I think this is one of the most valuable things, to be honest, is when the AI doesn't do what you're asking, it's important to be able to know how to do it yourself.
That is the nice part of it, that you can step in when something goes awry. And so I've got this set up. And so I know, as we saw in the data, basically inside of these separate tool calls, so we have the CRM Copilot tool calls, and the lead enrichment tool calls. There's further tool calls inside of here. So what I'll do is I'll turn on repeat items. I'll bind this. And then inside of here, we have these further repeated items. And so if I just put in text here and then bind it to what was repeated, we should be able to see everything. So, sorry, not this one. This one, I believe. No, that's the same one. Because it's not passing in the, it's getting the keys, right? Okay. Okay, we'll do something hacky. Bear with me.
That's part of software development. I think that's one of the best skills to have, right? Is to find workarounds. It's all about problem solving when you're building software applications. So
yes, so
it's important to be creative and find alternative ways to get the job
yes,
done.
I'm going to hard code these. So what I'll do is I will unbind this text and I'll call this one CRM tools used. And then I'll call this one, this is repeating right now. So I'll turn this off and then I'll repeat this manually. So I'll press Control D to duplicate it. I would like these to be horizontal, give it some gap, and then I will say lead enrichment tools used. And so now in this div, it should be pretty straightforward. So I'm repeating the items. What I want to repeat is no longer repeated items. I'm manually going to set it up to use both of these tools. So I'll bind it to the CRM Copilot tools. I will put in some text here.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to duplicate this. We already had that set up, but all good. I'll just drag it over into this tool item and then bind it to the lead enrichment tools. My bad. Like so. Cool, and I think there's a lot going on here, so I'll just reduce this slightly. There we go. It's not the prettiest thing in the world because my design isn't as good as AI, unfortunately, but it does the job. So now, sorry, go on, Danny.
We could have the AI. We could have the AI make it pretty.
We could.
Right?
We could.
We do the hard parts and let it, just complement our work.
Exactly. I'm conscious of the time, so let's dive straight into this. So the thing is, now we've created this deal. Our data isn't up to date. So in order to get the latest data after we've made that call, I'm just going to add a fetch collection item to get the latest deals. And I'm going to do this now. So we have the data up to date. So we have these ones. There's 2 new ones because we haven't refetched the data since we've been doing this. And what I want to do now is whatever deal has been returned, I want to highlight it in the interface. So I'm going to say, we already have a selected one, but I'll get rid of this to do it from scratch. I'll add a custom state and I will call it selected. And I just need I need a new variable for this. So for the chat, I will duplicate this. It's an array already, and I will call it chat artifacts. And in our workflow, I want to populate this new variable with the deal IDs, because then I can use that to set up logic in the board to highlight the one that's been created. And so I will.
And that's why I was using that XML tag to and telling the agent to reply that way and extracting it into JSON array, which is the deal ID that you're seeing.
And so in the call agent response, I'll go to metadata, and I just want to save the deal array because this is all the IDs. And so now in the deal card, if I go to the selected state which I'm on, I can bind the condition and I can say the ID of the current item, so whichever item is in this list, equals, actually, I can say contains, because the variable created was an array. So we need to check if the variable, so the artifacts array, contains the ID of our item.
And the reason I made it an array is because it could return a single deal ID from our lead enrichment agent, or the CRM Copilot itself could use the get deals tool and return a list of deals. So that way it works for both.
Yes, and so I'm just checking this now. So I went back and I tested that action to add the last created deal as into the artifacts array, which it now is. And I can see, so this is returning true, which is expected because this is the most recent deal created. So the one that was created here. And so what I'll do now is, since I have the deal card selected and I'm in the selected state, now we can use AI to make this a bit prettier. So I'll start a new chat. I'm going to get rid of this context, and I'm simply just going to say, add a unique design to the selected state of the deal card to make it visually appealing. And since I have the selected state active here, it should know what I'm talking about. Fingers crossed as always.
We believe in you. And just to mention that we are trying to go quick and show you how you can do this, but you can actually take this so much further and enhance it in any way you see fit for your team or whoever you're building for your end users that are going to be using a CRM agentic CRM application like this.
Exactly. I mean, we've been talking about it offline about we could spend time on this for hours to try and cover so many use cases. So yeah, we're just trying to get through as quickly as possible. So we have the selected state here. Okay, cool. And if I put this into preview mode, there we go. Cool. So that's now updated correctly. So it's just the most recent one that's the artifact that's being labeled in the chat. And I can see it's added a selected indicator. Okay, cool. It's taken a bit of a liberty. We'll keep it. We'll keep it for now. It's a nice touch. So the next part, exactly. The next part is we'll add a pop-up to show the detailed information. So if you remember from the demo, you could click the artifact and then basically see a detailed pop-up of more information. And again, I'm going to kind of set the foundation myself and then try and use AI to build on top of it to speed up the more manual parts that aren't too complex, let's say. So what I can do is I will create a pop-up. I'm going to create an empty modal. And here's my empty modal. And pop-ups in WeWeb basically have internal logic. So I can add properties, variables, workflows, formulas, different things. I won't go through all of them in depth now, but long story short, you can add logic to them. And so since I want this to be a detailed pop-up to view a specific deal, what I'm going to do is that every time this pop-up is opened, I'm going to pass it a deal ID, which will be a number. And I will add a workflow so that on mount, so basically when this component, when this pop-up loads, we want to perform this action. And what I want to do is I want to change a variable value. And actually, let me just take a step back. One thing I want to do before setting up this workflow is I'm going to create a variable and call it deal data. It's going to be an object. And what I'll do here is that whatever deal ID is passed in, I'll look through our deals, figure out which deal it is, and then save that deal to this variable so it can be used in the pop-up. So I'll create that object variable. And now back in the workflow, what I can do is I can update our deal data variable. And I'm going to update the entire object. And I'm going to use a formula, filter by key. And so the reason I'm going to use this is I'm going to look through our deals data, filter it by the ID, and then the ID I want to filter by is whatever deal ID has been passed in as a property. It's currently returning all of them because we haven't put in a test property. But if I quickly do that now, I think the previous deal ID, what was it? Let me just close this to see it, was 156. And so if I go back to that pop-up and I put the deal ID as 156, cool, we have that correct object. And so I'm just going to put this here to basically say get the first item, because there we were returning a list and I want to get the first item in that list. And so if I update this, now I can see in the deal data of the component, we have all of that data. Super. So now I can get AI to do the kind of the nitty gritty part, the manual work. So I delete everything that's inside of here. And I basically want it to, inside of this content div, populate or create the designs for this detailed pop-up. So again, I'll start a new chat because the previous message, I don't want to infer anything from it. It wasn't related. We're passing in the content div already. And what I want to pass in is the deal data because this is what I want to show in the content div. So again, I've got a pre-cooked prompt here that I will just paste in, but it's basically doing exactly what I said. So in this content div, I want to show a detailed view of the information in the deal detail variable. And just so it knows exactly what I'm talking about, I'm going to make this a case match. Cool. And so
that's a great tip.
Best practices.
Love it. And one thing I do want to call out is me and Matthew had built this out together. In our when we had done it, it worked on the very first try. And so one thing that I've found really helpful when building with AI is to not to try a few different times and see if you get better results than the first time. Start from scratch each time and see how good each result is. And that way you're not What I'm trying to say is don't give up on the first try.
Yeah.
Give it another shot and see if it's able to do it.
And if you wanted to take inspiration from something, you absolutely can. One thing we haven't done here, and I can't remember if we did it in part 1, but you can pass in screenshots to the AI. So if I wanted to, I could go on something like Dribble or whatever there is out there and find an example design that I wanted to use for, in this case, let's say the detail pop-up. And I could paste it in and I could get it to take inspiration. But as you said, Daniel, there's so much value in just trying different things, giving it different prompts, and the smallest wording change in terms of asking it to design it in a certain way or create it in a certain way can massively affect the end output. So yeah, I think just experimenting and seeing what works for you is a big piece.
100%. It's interesting. It doesn't seem like it's binding any of the values.
Yeah, so it's set up the base parts of it, but it should be pretty straightforward to tweak this manually. So it hasn't gave it a max height. I don't want it to take up more than that's available. So actually I'll put the height to auto, but I want the max height to be 80 BH, which basically means it can only take up 80% of the screen's height, that is. And you can see it's overflowing here. So what I want to do is set overflow to auto. So this way now we scroll. And I just want, as you said, Daniel, I want to check these bindings. So the notes here, I think it is actually binding the notes to be dynamic, but I'm not sure what it's using for the content. So I think I just need to replace this to be the text. And there we go. Cool. And what notes did it make on you? This is always actually interesting. All good things.
Yeah, it's really impressive when you and that's why we equipped the agent with some of the top tools out there like Exa Search and Hunter.io, and that way it grabs relevant information from the web.
And so what I'll just to make sure it's all working correctly. So I'll take our pre-cooked prompt from before. And let's see if I try it for me. So if I say, so if all works correctly, I should be added to the database. We should see the tools used and the artifacts. And when I click on the artifact, I should see a detail pop up for myself. And actually that new deal in the board, it should be highlighted.
And yeah, but we didn't do the page navigation like the other demo, but that's really quick as well to set up. I watched Matthew do it, and it took him like 2 minutes.
So the key piece to enable the here we go. Okay.
Yep. There you are.
I never knew it, but I live in Paris, so maybe I've got a new location, but
I think that's the company location.
And so if I click this artifact, my bad, I never set up the workflow to do it. So that's simple. So on the view button, I can create a workflow. I can open a pop-up. I'll choose the modal. I didn't give it a name, but this is the one. And for the deal ID, I'll just pass in the data, so the deal that it's bound to. So now, there we go.
Look, it grabbed that beautiful WeWeb logo as well.
Super. Well, there we go. We have a bit of time since we started late. Shall I add the navigation part, Daniel, do you think?
Yeah, I think so, because I think it's really valuable to show, because this isn't just a chatbot. It's a co-pilot within the CRM. And that way you can show it actually taking action within the CRM itself and not just the chat window.
And what I will do is, since the response takes a bit of time because of the external services it has to call, I'm going to add a loader. And so what I'll do is, underneath this chat messages container, I have my loader. We can see it here. And I'm just going to change its styling slightly. And I want it to be on the left. And I want it to match the spacing of the chat messages above it. So I'll add some margin like so. And what I'll do is, in the Copilot chat, send message to Chatbot, I'm just going to quickly create a new variable. I'll call it chat is loading. And so basically in this workflow now, as soon as it gets called, I'll say the chat is loading by setting it to true. And then at the very end, just after we add the chat messages that gets shown in the interface, I'll set it to false. And so I want to show this loader whenever chat is loading, returns true. So right now it's false, and so we can't see the loader. Super. And so now to set up what Daniel was mentioning with the navigation, really the only thing we need to do is the variables that we're using to populate our interface, we just need to make sure that they get saved across page changes. And so if I go into everything that we have, so we have chat artifacts, preserve on navigation is currently off. So I'm going to turn this to on. So that means well, it gets saved across page changes, basically. Chat is open. That's already set to on. Chat messages, I want to preserve this on navigation, and you'll notice that these get reset whenever I change this, but that's expected. And I think that is it. So we have the artifacts open, chat messages. That's everything that gets used to populate the interface. And then the only other thing would be that in the actual chat itself, whenever we get the response back, so we fetch the deals, I want to check what page the user is on. So I can't spell today. Are they on the deals page? And the way we can check this is by binding it. And does the current page name equal deals? This isn't best practice. You probably should do this using the page ID because the name could change later on. But for now, we'll just use the name. And so if they are on the deals page, we don't want to do anything. But if they aren't on the deals page, then we want to navigate them to the deals page. And since all of the variables that we're changing here are set to preserve on navigation, everything should be preserved. And actually, I'll put this to the very end just after we update the chat artifacts. And so now, if everything comes to fruition, I will go on the company's page. One thing I need to do is I need to carry over the elements. So we have the chat menu here, and we have the button at the bottom, which is the sticky bar. And so I just need to go on the company's page, go into multi-page sections, which is where all the sections lie. And so on the deals page, we have the sticky bar. I want to add that to the page. I want it to create an instance because it will be the exact same version of the section. And lastly, I want the chat menu. Super. And so now, if I press this, there we go. And who should we find, Daniel?
Who should we find? What's the CEO of?
We won't give it too difficult of a one. Let's say Microsoft. So we have our loader, and so now when it returns this, we should be navigated to the deals page. Since all of the variables that we're using to populate the interface are set to preserve on navigation, everything should be saved. And so the only thing that should really change is we're brought to the deals page, the chat will still be open, we'll see the same messages, and we should see the new deal highlighted in the board.
I'm wondering, oh, there we go. It took us to the deals page, and there it is.
And if we open this, there we go.
Very cool.
And so, I mean, even with this use case, we've used it for a CRM, but you can already see a potential different use case that's somewhat related where you could use it to some kind of Crunchbase alternative, perhaps even some kind of stock analysis because of the way it pulls this data about companies. There's so many different things, and obviously that's only of different use cases that are somewhat related to what we do. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless with this kind of thing.
Yeah, and when we release this template, I know this is going to be extremely valuable to, anywhere from small to medium-sized businesses all the way up to enterprise, anybody who's looking for a HubSpot or Salesforce alternative. I even see it being really valuable for agencies and freelancers to, clone this template and basically get started with a very quick template and POC that they can demo for their customers. That is just agentic straight out of the box using Xano or WeWeb.
There's so many internal tools that I think are going to benefit from this agentic experience, because I think it's being ingrained into us that we no longer want to do things manually. We just want to talk to someone and have it be done for us. So yeah, I think it's going to add a lot of value.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, we didn't even end up, or I guess we showed it in the very first part of the demo. But when we were asking about like our top deals, it will basically list all of those deals with the artifacts. You can drill down into each one. But not only that, it'll navigate you to the deals page and highlight all of those cards you saw with those top deals. So you get that visual cue as well. Really providing some of the best user experience out there.
I mean, and because of the way we're returning the data, and as you showed, because you can control exactly what gets returned and obviously how you formulate that data in the first place with the tools, you can pretty much do anything you want with it in terms of how you show it on the interface. And this was the coolest thing when we started exploring this, was the fact we could simply just take what it returns, transform it into something that we can use on our front end. And the way we've transformed it, we can now obviously create artifacts, show the tools used, and then when you get clever with it, you can show detailed pop-ups, highlight it on the board. It really just, it comes down to your imagination.
100%. Any closing thoughts on your side? I have a couple on mine.
Sure, yeah. Actually, just before you jump into it, Daniel, because you made a good point, we didn't show it. As you were talking, I was curious. I just wanted to make sure that was working for us. I gave it the prompt of what are our biggest deals, and it did exactly as you said. So these are ones that we had set up before, just because the agent wasn't programmed to add a potential value, and that's what it's using for this. But so as you said, it found all of them, the tools used, and then it has all of the artifacts, so you can click onto it, and you obviously see all of the data for it.
Awesome. Glad that you showed that. And especially because, as you can see, earlier, Matthew had to hard code that the second lead enrichment agent tools used. And as you can see, it never ended up calling it, right? The AI agent itself knew that based off of the request, okay, I just need to call this tool. So really happy that you showed that part as well.
It's very cool to see, because I mean, obviously we've crammed this into an hour, but already we've created something that's, I would say, quite dynamic. So putting more time into this, be very interesting to see what could be done with it.
100%. And we will do our best to get you guys the updated resources for what we've built today as soon as possible. And feel free to, or please tag us if you clone this, or if you build off of this, or if this inspired you to build something else. We would love to see it and highlight that.
100%.
Awesome. Well, I think that's about it for us. And thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, it is a pleasure and an honor to do this with you, Matthew. We love WeWeb over here at Xano, and love doing it.
Likewise, Daniel. Everyone that comes to me and says, what backend should I use? I instantly point them to Xano. Whatever they're already using, I say, have you explored Xano? WeWeb is obviously my baby, but my second child is Xano in another life. So yeah, 100%. And as you said, it's a pleasure to always do these. Perhaps we can do this again in the future. I know we've said offline that there's so much we can do with this, because obviously we just cram this into an hour for now. I'd love to explore this further, see how far we can take it, because I know you guys are working hard on this behind the scenes, and we've only just scratched the surface today. So I think it'd be really cool to do another one of these in the future.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to keep building off of this and really get some, feature-rich template out there for the community and anyone else who wants to use it. I think it would just be so valuable to have that instantly plug and play. I remember years ago when I first got started with Xano and WeWeb, I used the original version of the CRM template, and that's how I got started and how I started to understand how to build, because I that's how I prefer to learn. I love seeing and going through and see how something's built out and set up. I find it really helpful.
Agreed.
I think before we hop off, we did have one question in the chat. Would you mind pulling that up for us, Matthew?
Yes, from Mark, right?
Yep.
Yes, so Mark has asked, what, if any, parameters are you using on your Exa Search?
Yeah, so we can actually pull up the tool. If you wouldn't mind sharing my screen once again, we can go ahead, and I am in this one. And if we go to my agents here, we can see our lead enrichment. And if I go to my Exa Search tool, you can see I am actually just using the search endpoint and passing in the query. And so it's literally one argument to the endpoint. As you see here, we're just passing it in as the query. So that is all it is. And if I actually go back real quick and just show you, you can see how it's executing here. It just passed, and the AI is choosing these queries and these parameters, right? And that's the beauty of it. Even when our CRM copilot calls the lead enrichment agent, you can see exactly how it's calling it. We're not providing that prompt. It's one agent prompting the other agent, which is just mind-blowing. So I highly recommend diving in and getting started with Xano and WeWeb today.
I can't wait to see the templates you guys put out for this kind of thing, because as I say, I think there's so many possibilities that it's hard to kind of even imagine all of the possibilities. So yeah, I really look forward to the templates.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Hopefully sooner rather than later. And fingers crossed we can start on time next time. Third time is a charm.
Exactly.